Hi guys, my name is Nicola and I'm here today filming you this video about something about me that you guys might probably not know about. I have functional neurological disorder. In this video I will be referring to it as FND. Now, you might be thinking, why am I talking about FND? Well, I'll tell you now, it's because not a lot of people know about FND. So in a nutshell, what is functional neurological disorder? FND, it's a neurological condition. So how it occurs is for me, my brain thinks that I'm in pain when I'm actually not. So in computer terms, it's a software problem rather than a hardware problem. When I have panic attacks now with FND, I get shooting pains in my legs, stabbing pains in my back, and I feel like I'm paralysed. So I'm now going to tell you a timeline of how all of these events happened. So September 2015, I went back to sixth form after the summer holidays to complete my A2s. Now, I went in for the first 2 days completely fine, nothing was happening at this point, but it was on the Monday I thought I was coming down with a cold. So I was like, right, I just need to have a few days off just to get over this and then I'll be back into the swing of things. And it was the Tuesday. My mum was concerned because I had some gunk around my eyes and I was struggling to open my lips because they were incredibly sore, and my mum was thinking, oh, that could be conjunctivitis and tonsillitis potentially. So we went to the GP and the GP said it's not tonsillitis or conjunctivitis, it's an eye and throat infection. So I was given antibiotics to help me to get over that. But the doctor did say, worst case scenario, it's glandular fever. So, okay, it's fair enough. It's just one of those things. But it was the Wednesday night after we had actually been to the doctors, and my dad came up to my bedroom and he just sat on my bed just because he wanted to see how I was, and he moved, and because I was lying in bed trying to get to sleep, he moved the duvet covers off me and he was touching my ankle to give reassurance to me, as a way of saying to me, it's going to be okay, there's nothing to worry about, we'll get you all better and then you'll be able to carry on as normal and nothing, and not to worry about it. But it was when my dad touched my ankle that I got shooting pains at my legs and stabbing pains in my back, and I was like, and so my dad really quickly took his hand off my ankle and was like, what did I do? And I was crying my eyes out. I was in so much pain. The pain was unbearable, and my dad was like, right, we need to call an ambulance, this isn't right at all. So we spoke to the ambulance crew, and in the end they didn't turn up because they said speak to the on-call doctor and see, because I was starting to feel a bit better and rather tired in actual fact, because it was at night, and so we would have been waiting around an A&E for a long time, so it was better that I waited at home in my bed where I would be more comfortable. And yeah, so the on-call doctor eventually was able to call and said, okay, so what you need to do is you just need to go back to the GP in the morning and just say, look, these are the symptoms that I had last night and during the night, and we need to do like something to investigate it because this isn't right. So that's when the doctor was like, right, this isn't right. This isn't normal. This isn't good. Okay, so he was like, you need to have a blood test for glandular fever, and he prescribed me painkillers to help me to manage my pain. And at first the painkillers, they worked a bit, but they didn't like take the full effect away, which is what I wanted. But he also signed a doctor's note to say, right, so that way I can prove to school, like, this is like a genuine reason for me to be off ill, like I'm not faking it or anything. So that happened, and that blood test, it came back inconclusive, so I was told I needed to be tested again. And then until October half term, I was still off school. I got various infections. I had eczema around my eyes that got infected. I had impetigo at one point. I had really badly infected skin around my lips. My eczema there was infected, and another infection I had was behind my ears got infected. My head scalp itself got really, really itchy and was getting infected. So I was given all these various antibiotics and lotions and potions to try and calm everything down. But it was October half time. My dad and my mum and sister, they all just came into my room, and my dad said to me, look, I think this is going to be a long term thing, it's not going to be a short term thing. And he said, your quality of life has just deteriorated significantly. So my dad was like, well, how about we speak to the church and just say, look, can we just borrow a wheelchair just like for a few days, just so I could get out the house and get some fresh air. And it was at that point I just burst into tears, because I felt embarrassed and ashamed to need to have a wheelchair, because I had gone from this completely healthy, nothing has ever happened to me or anything like that, to suddenly this person who basically couldn't do a lot for herself and would struggle to get out of bed in the morning, to go to the toilet, to get dressed. It was a struggle for me to eat and drink. I was sleeping a lot. It really wasn't nice. It was really, really depressing, actually. Eventually I did agree to start using a wheelchair, and it was weird. It didn't feel right, but it helped me. And it was one of those wheelchairs that I could propel myself along, because I needed to have that sense of independence, knowing that I can push it along if for whatever reason I want to, or if I'm having a bit of a better day than what I could be having, or if I wasn't having a good day, then someone could still push me along and just help me. And yeah. And then, so in the end, I had 4 blood tests for glandular fever. 3 came back inconclusive, and then the final one, thank goodness, came back negative. And so once we were able to rule out glandular fever, I felt a lot better, knowing that it wasn't that, but it was the unknown and not knowing what it was that was still bothering me. And so I was still off school. I was sent some work that I could carry on with, because we were thinking, oh, I'll be able to go back at some point. But we had a discussion with school, and we were like, right, she's probably not going to be able to go back and carry on this year, but keep her on the register, so that way I can start my A2s again in the following September. So I was able to have a medical gap year, so that way I could get myself better and get myself in the right frame of mind to do my A2s, which worked out really well in the end. But even so, it was just one of those things I wasn't really feeling great about, because I wanted to be able to finish school with my friends who I started with, and that never happened really, for obvious reasons. But going back now, so it was December 2015. It was the weekend before Christmas, so as you can imagine, everyone's going to be really busy and all excited and everything about Christmas. And I was at a church carol service, and I just wasn't feeling great anyway. And I called my dad to pick me up, because he didn't want to go to this service, and I was in the wheelchair at the time to just try and help me to feel more independent. Yeah, so my dad picked me up and he got me to the car, and I was trying to get myself out of the wheelchair and into the car, and I was like, Dad, I can't do this. I can't stand up, and I couldn't move. I worked myself up into such a state, and I was like, Dad, I can't move. I genuinely can't, like. And so my dad was like, right, so he got his arms under and put them under my armpits, and to lift me up and hoist me up, and then get me into the car. And him moving me like that just set off a massive panic attack, and I had shooting pains in my legs and arms, stabbing pains in my back. I felt like I was paralysed. I couldn't move. I was in agony again. I laugh at, I smile at it now, but that is genuinely what happened. And then when my dad pulled up on the driveway, I said, look, I can't get out. I just could not get out. I was in so much pain. I was just like, I couldn't move, and it was affecting my breathing. And because I've got asthma, I'm like, okay, I need to open the airways out as much as I can. So I took a couple of puffs of my reliever inhaler to help me out, and that did help, but it wasn't the normal panic attack I'm used to having, which is probably understandable. But even so, it wasn't the greatest of all experiences. So my mum turned up because I needed my mum. Like, there's something, as amazing as my dad was, like, I needed my mum. And so my mum came over, and my sister and everything was left to my grandparents to sort out. So my sister was staying at my grandparents' house so that way she would be safe and out the way, and we wouldn't have to worry about her. And so we called the ambulance because my parents, they didn't want to move me out of the car in case I had genuinely injured myself, because they thought, oh, I might have had a slip disc in my back, because that's all the only sort of thing they could think of, the sort of pain I was in. And they were thinking, oh, it could actually be sciatica, because that's something that's happened, like, that's hereditary in my mum's side of the family. So she's had it in pregnancy, and so has her mum has had it before as well. And so we were thinking, oh, it could be sciatica. So it was really difficult to know what was needed, and so we called the ambulance, and they basically manhandled me out of the car and onto the trolley and put me in the ambulance, and I had gas and air, and let me tell you, that is the best stuff for me at the time. And because I don't drink alcohol, because I genuinely don't like it, and my mum, she was in the ambulance with me, and my dad, he stayed behind in the house just to make sure that our cat had some food down for him and was all medicated, and got some stuff out for my sister, so that way she would be able to have stuff with my gran and granddad and not have to worry about stuff, so she'd have all of her medication and everything. And then he followed us up to the hospital, and let me tell you, my mum said to me that it looked like I was drunk on the laughing gas, but the laughing gas was brilliant. It just took all of the pain away, and that was basically the first time that I hadn't felt the pain since it all started, which was just amazing. It was a nice feeling not having to be in pain like all the time. But then when we turned up in A&E and they transferred me from the trolley into the hospital wheelchairs, which is these blue upright things that are mega uncomfortable, and I had to not have the gas in there, that's when all of the pain started to kick in, and I was like, right, as amazing as the gas and air is, I need it, like, but I couldn't have it because obviously the ambulance people needed it so they could go back out, and I was just in a lot of pain again, and I was really tired because my body had just had a massive argument with itself over the fact that it was such a simple thing, and yet it just took a lot out of me. So we were waiting in A&E for a few hours, and it was about 4 hours actually, and we were seen, and they said, okay, well, we'll give you some painkillers. So they gave me some paracetamol, which helped, and they gave me some diazepam, and the diazepam is muscle relaxant. So it was lovely to be able to just know that I could to relax, and it made a massive difference. I felt so much better for that, and the doctors were like, yeah, it's probably sciatica. So sciatica is where a nerve in your back gets trapped. So they've just sort of put really down to that, and they weren't really sure quite what it was. So so they referred me back to the GP and said, look, this is what happened, and you need to see her again and just get loads of tests done and everything. And so I went to the GP, and I had another blood test for glandular fever, because the doctors were still convinced it was glandular fever at that point, and they said that they were going to try do their best to make me feel better, and the doctors, they were saying to me, look, we're going to make you better, we're going to sort you out and help you, and they were saying it's not going to be easy, but we'll get there. And I said, and so one of the doctors was doing all of my reflexes and making sure that I didn't have any nerve damage, because that's one of the concerns, because they didn't know if it was neurology or rheumatology. So and we had to do a list of all of the signs and symptoms that I was getting, which is a long list, and I'll get it out now because, quite frankly, it's a list if ever there were one. And we also had one on family history, so that way the doctors could do another series of blood tests to help rule out anything that it isn't. So they weren't sure if it was going to be a type of arthritis, and it was just getting really complicated for obvious reasons. But yeah, so it's just one of those things, really. Here it is. Okay. Right. So the symptoms I got was itchy and scratchy. So I was really itchy. My face, head, everything was just so itchy. I was hypersensitive to touch. If someone were to lightly just touch me like that, I have it would send lots of shooting pains in my legs, and it was really itchy, and it wasn't good at all. I'd also had really bad eczema as well, so my face had eczema which was infected. I had eczema there as well. I was just so itchy everywhere. I had brain fog, so I wasn't able to string sentences together. I was getting all my words jumbled up. I needed help to send simple text messages, so my mum had to proofread everything. So every single text message, email, Facebook post, you name it, she had to proofread everything for me. I also struggled with hearing with background noises. So in restaurants with loud background music on, I would struggle to be able to concentrate and struggle to hear what people were saying, and that would cause anxiety for me as well, because it felt like I was being trapped. My hearing was affected anyway. I struggled to put sentences together and find appropriate words, so I was struggling to find the appropriate words to help form a sentence, so I just couldn't string a simple sentence together. I mean, now I've been talking for goodness knows however long, and it's not been too bad, but when I'm not having a good day, I can't really form a simple sentence, as it were. I also had really bad joint pain, so the pain was was really high for me because it was awful. But with painkillers, it felt like it wasn't so bad, but the painkillers didn't really help anyway, and I would have shooting pains in my legs, arms, and stabbing pains in my back. I was really, really tired all of the time. I also have had this thing which we made up. It's called pink knee syndrome. So it's where I would have either pink and or white highlighted dots on my legs, arms, ankles, feet and hands. Now that would be highly visible after exercise, and the only exercise I was able to do was swimming and aquatone, for the simple reason it was a water-based activity, so the water would relieve the pressure from my joints, so I wouldn't be putting pressure on my joints, and that helped. But I'd get it was weird, and they were always really hot to touch. Sciatica, as I've already explained, hypersensitive to touch, like I've already said, extremely sensitive and liable to cry at a drop of her hat. You could say anything to me and I would probably, and 99 times out of 100 I would cry. I also had poor temperature control, so I feel the cold anyway, but with it being as it was winter at the time, I was even more cold. I was a lot colder than what I perhaps should have been. So I would look like a mini burrito because I'd have so many layers on, and I'd have like 3 blankets on my lap to try and keep my legs warm. Because obviously when you're in a wheelchair and your legs get cold anyway because you're not using them. So I was unable to walk very far, so I would have to use the wheelchair the majority of the time when out of the house. The only time I wouldn't use the wheelchair was when I was up at the stables because I didn't know how the horses would react to it, and as we've got our own horse, and at the time he was poorly as well with Crohn's and irritable bowel IBS, so he was skin and bone no matter how much we gave him to eat, so he'd have 3 massive meals and as much hay as he wanted, and he was still really poorly. But he's all fine now, but yeah, that was the last thing we wanted, was for him to go downhill. So that wasn't good either. I had lost my appetite as well, so I wasn't really eating a great deal. Like, I would sort of eat quite small portions with everything, and I just get full really quickly. I also had trouble getting to sleep at bedtime and trouble waking up. So because I wasn't really doing a great deal, I would struggle to go to sleep at night and wake up in the mornings. Now, I'm not a morning person anyway, but even so, like, I would struggle to get out of bed in the mornings. Like, it was a genuine struggle for me. When I'm overtired, I would struggle to stand up, walk, and get undressed. So when I was a few times I was downstairs having one of my not such good moments, and my dad would have to help walk me up the stairs. So I would hold on to his shoulders, and my mum would stand behind me to just be there in case, and literally we would go one step at a time until I was in my room, and my mum would have to help me get undressed and get things undone because it was hard work to get even that done. I was also very sensitive to speed bumps, potholes when travelling in the car. Now, that potholes and speed bumps are annoying anyway, but when going over speed bumps and potholes and you're in a lot of pain and just a simple vibration can set you off, it's never a good combination. So my mum would have to think of routes that had the least amount of speed bumps and the least amount of potholes, so that way it wouldn't affect me, and anyone who was driving, it would be like close family friends. They did the same, and we just said, look, can you go this way instead of that way because of the speed bumps and potholes, and they understood, and they wanted to just do their best to help me, which was lovely. When I was stressed, I was nauseous and I'd have panic attacks. So like I've already said, it says on here I had 4 tests for glandular fever. The first 3 came back inconclusive and the 4th came back negative. My vitamin D levels were within the normal parameters, which was a good thing. I was on a vitamin D supplement because my mum was concerned that I wasn't able to get enough vitamin D, and with it being winter anyway, but also because I wouldn't be able to go out of the house so much. That was a struggle as well. I was unable to go to school. I found it really hard to make decisions. Now, I find making decisions hard at the best of times, but when you've got brain fog and you've got all of this going on, making decisions is like the worst thing possible. I was very irritable and I found it difficult to get in and out of the car, which is to do with the anxiety and the mobility problems as well, and just all of that. And I also had several panic attacks due to sudden changes, strange surroundings. Now, that in itself, so I'll give you an example. We were in town. It was on a Saturday, and town for us is busy anyway on Saturdays, and we were going out for lunch somewhere in a restaurant that none of us had actually been to, and that was enough to just trigger a massive panic attack for me. And I was in the wheelchair at the time, and I was just like, I just could not cope. So my dad had to take me outside and try to calm me down. And so my mum and sister, they waited inside, and my dad, and after I calmed down, my dad was like, right, we need to get you to lie down on a bed so that way you can just lie down and just let everything sort itself out. And so my mum and sister, they came back out, and we went to one of the shops that's nearby, and frustratingly the lift was broken and the only way you could get down was stairs. And I said to my dad, you are not lifting me down the stairs in the wheelchair because I don't want you to hurt yourself. And I was absolutely petrified of the thought of that anyway. So luckily at that point I was feeling better in myself, so we went to a different restaurant that we had all been to before, and I was happy to go there because it was familiar. And yeah, so it was a lovely meal in the end, thank goodness, but it wasn't a nice feeling anyway. So yeah, so that was that. And then January, when I had my appointment with the specialist, so this is going on to January now. So the GP referred me to neurology and not rheumatology. She thought, well, we'll start off with one and then we can always go to the other if need be. And so it turns out that the consultant was able to diagnose me with functional neurological disorder. Yeah. Now that appointment in itself was awful to start off with because my dad forgot to put the wheelchair in the boot of the car. And I really don't like the hospital wheelchairs because they're so uncomfortable, and the fact that my dad didn't put the wheelchair in the car meant that I had a massive panic attack about it in the car as we were approaching the hospital, and it was never a good thing anyway, but that was awful. And my mum was like, it's okay, we're gonna get you better, okay? But no, so yeah. So, and the doctor and the consultant, he was doing all of these special tests, and he said to me, look, I need you to stand up and walk like a really short distance, and I was like, no, I can't. And my dad had to step in and say, come on, you can do this, and sort of be a bit on the firmer side. And so I forced myself to walk from one side of the room to the other and back again. Now, bearing in mind, this room isn't like massive itself, but even so, it was not nice. So yeah, and then he referred me to another specialist who was able to make the link that my functional neurological disorder is triggered by anxiety and depression. And there is no cure for a functional neurological disorder. You have it for your whole life, and you have to manage your symptoms. However, it was February half term of 2016. I was starting to feel better in myself because I had a diagnosis, and we were starting to get into a routine a bit. And I still would have my moments, but they weren't as bad as some of the other moments. Sorry, I'm really tired. This shows you that I'm concentrating so much on filming this video. So I was starting to use the wheelchair significantly less, but I was able to, when I was having a relatively good day-ish, I would push the wheelchair along, so that way, if I needed to, I could just sit down in the wheelchair and wheel myself along, which was a massive step in the right direction for me, because it was a step closer to me getting my independence back. So that was that. And then so in April I was diagnosed with depression, which now I can see how it all links together. I mean, at the time I was still really confused about how it all was connected, but after having to explain it to so many people, it just makes sense now. So that was that. And then I was able to return to work. Now, I hadn't been working since since September, so I was able to start picking up some cover work at the stables where I was doing my part-time work, and that was nice, just to be able to be with the horses. Soon I went back into sick form, and I started attending the lessons. That way I could just get used to being in the school routine again, because it had obviously been almost a year since I had actually been in school, because of all of the problems that I've had. School were really supportive. They just wanted the best for me. They've always said right from the start they just wanted the best for me, and they would support me in whatever decision I made, and all of that. So I was able to do that, which was fantastic. And then August was brilliant. I was able to do a lot with my horse. At the annual show, I was given the Endeavour Award which is known as the Courage Cup, because I had shown so much courage that year, and I was able to achieve so much. And when my name was announced, I just burst into tears because I was so shocked that I was given that award. And I will say, I said I could not have done it without friends, family, and my horse. And my horse, oh my gosh, without my horse I would not be in the position that I am today, being able to have achieved all that I have. So my horse, oh my god, he's basically a lifesaver. He's the best therapy for me. So it's good for me to know that he can helped me through thick and thin. So yeah, and then September came round and I was in school, I was applying to uni, I had all of my uni interviews and all of that, and that's another video altogether. And September 2017 I started university in Coventry, and I'm doing learning disability nursing, and whenever I tell my story to people, they're like, oh my gosh, you are amazing, like, because you've gone through so much. And people still today, they're like, they're still really shocked that I've been able to go through everything, and yet I've gained so much from it. And for me, the aim of this video is more so that way I can just say to people, if you're not having a good day, don't worry about it. You're not the only one who's having a good day. And also, because functional neurological disorder isn't very well known medical conditions, I wanted to make this video to make awareness of my story, and so that way people can watch this video and be like, okay, so this is what it is, and this is the sort of things that I went through, and the outcome of it all, and how I've been able to achieve so much. But honestly, so 2016 was my year of success for me. That was probably the best year that I've had, because even though it started off with it was quite rough. In January I was given a diagnosis. In February I was able to stop using the wheelchair so much. Good Friday, after 6 months I was able to ride my horse again. Oh my gosh, that was the best feeling ever. I was almost in tears of happiness, because I was just like, I felt human again. And then April I was given the diagnosis of depression. May and June I was starting to work again, and June I started school, sixth form again. July I was in sixth form. August I was doing a lot of competitions with my horse, and I was given the Endeavour Award. And then September I started sixth form full time and was applying through UCAS for universities. And then December and November I was getting everything. I was sorting all my UCAS stuff out, and everything was just great. Like, 2016 was definitely the turning point for me. I achieved so much that not a lot of people would be able to do, especially for me, it was a massive achievement for me. But again, like I said, this video is obviously it's really just to make people aware that functional neurological disorder does exist. And if you are having an anxious day, I want you to know that you're not alone, and I hope you can find courage in this video to know that you are not alone. Like, there are other people out here, and if you do know anyone with functional neurological disorder, please can you comment in the comment section down below, because in the 2 years that I've been diagnosed, I've not been able to find anyone that has functional neurological disorder, and it would be lovely to know that there are definitely people out there with functional neurological disorder. One final thing I want to say is 2018 it's been a good start. It's been a good year already so far. It has been stressful with uni placement, but the biggest achievement I've had was going on a walk in the Peak District. It was that day 2 years ago that I was diagnosed with the FND, and I was able to walk about 13 miles in the Peak District. And So just to signify that, the 20th of January 2016 I got the diagnosis. 20th of January 2018 I walked 13 miles in the Peak District without the wheelchair, in the snow, with the church that is next door to my accommodation. And yeah, so in those 2 years you can see how much I have achieved. Now, obviously, I could never have done this without the support of friends and family, and of course my horse. And yeah, so if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and please comment down below if you've got any questions for me, if you want to know more about functional neurological disorder, if you have it or you know someone who has it, because I really do want to know that there are definitely people out there who have got functional neurological disorder. And yeah, I mean, this really was the main reason for me to set up my YouTube channel, is to promote functional neurological disorder in the best way that I possibly could, and it's taken me a while to actually get around to doing this. So I hope you guys have a lovely weekend, and I will see you very soon in my next video. Bye!